welcome to my channel. My name is Jenna and I'm Empress of Horror. So the film I'm going to be talking about today is Jennifer's Body. This film is a favourite of mine and I'm super excited to get into it. So Jennifer's Body was released in 2009. It was written by Diablo Cody, who also wrote Juno, and directed by Karyn Kusama. It's a dark comedy horror starring Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, and it scored 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. After Diablo Cody won her Oscar for Juno, which came out 2 years previous, she was pretty much given the green light to create anything she wanted, and so she wanted to create a horror film, and so we have Jennifer's Body. But this film majorly flopped at its release. It is now considered to be a cult classic, but we'll get into why it flopped so hard in a second. This film is about a pretty popular teenage girl in high school who is sacrificed to Satan by a local band in an attempt to gain fame. Their ritual doesn't go as planned because they think that Jennifer is a virgin when actually she's not, and this results in Jennifer being possessed by a demon and running around town eating boys. This film was served a huge injustice in the way that it was marketed in the run-up to its release, which is why when it hit cinemas it did so poorly. Studio executives really didn't like what Diablo Cody had created and were convinced it wasn't going to sell. So they did what they thought would be best for the movie, which was to aim it at teenage boys, purely because of Megan Fox's presence. They saw her as a sex object after her success in the Transformers movies and thought this was the best audience to market this film towards. This really infuriates me because if you've seen this movie, it is so clear that this film has a much more feminist agenda. Even Diablo Cody has said herself that she had a very specific idea in mind when creating this film. She wanted to use a demonic possession to comment on the hell of being a teenage girl living in a society that is so obsessed with appearance. Anyway, now I want to get into the spoiler section just so that I can talk a little bit more in depth about this movie. So if you haven't seen this film and you don't want me to ruin it for you, please go watch it and then come back. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I love so many things about it, but by far my favourite thing is the character Jennifer Check. Jennifer is such a complex character in this movie. She's a confident, alpha, boss bitch female, and she's popular and beautiful, and these are the reasons why she's cursed before she actually even gets cursed in this film. She's intelligent and deep, but people only see her for her beauty and her body, which completely dehumanises her before she's actually literally dehumanized by a demon. Even once she's been possessed and she's literally running around town eating boys, I'm still rooting for her. I'm still on her side because yes, she can be quite vain, she can be a little bit obnoxious, and maybe she's not the best friend, but she has been served such a huge injustice. She's went through a really brutal attack and attempted murder, and on top of that, she's also her entire life just been seen as this sex object, so I'm always on Jennifer Check's side every time I watch this film. This whole movie is a really clever comment on so many things, including the sexualization of teenagers, female sexual appetites, toxic female friendships, the pressures of being a teenager in high school, confusion of sexuality, themes of abuse, themes of consent, male abuse of power, female empowerment and revenge. I just love that this film had the guts to explore such complex and important themes that are still so relevant in today's society. Another really important character in this film is the character of Needy, played by Amanda Seyfried. Needy is kind of the main protagonist in this film. We do follow her and she does narrate throughout this film. And yes, she's seen as the hero, but she's also a huge queer icon in this film, and that again was something that was completely swept under the rug when this film was released. It's so clear in this movie that the character of Needy is completely and utterly in denial about being in love with Jennifer Check. Everything from the way that she looks at Jennifer to the way that she interacts with her, she's so submissive with her, and she completely adores her, and this all points toward the fact that she's in love with her. This character was supposed to be a gay icon for young women struggling with their sexuality at this point in time. Even in 2009, lesbians were still heavily sexualized in mainstream media, and the character of Needy was supposed to be a representation of a young girl struggling with her sexuality and the confusion of that when you're in high school. She was supposed to provide a beacon of hope and comfort to other young girls who were having similar feelings, which is why it's so disappointing when the film markets itself towards teenage boys, because it completely does the opposite and plays into the sexualization of queer people. So as well as this film dealing with loads of really important issues, which is partly the reason why I love it, it is also a really entertaining horror movie. Watching Jennifer Check run about town tearing boys apart and eating them is just a lot of fun. She does it so well, she's so convincing, and she's terrifying. There's a scene at the beginning of this movie, towards the end of the first act, where Jennifer has just been possessed by the demon and she sneaks into Needy's house, and that entire sequence is terrifying. I also love all of the 2000s rock band aesthetic that you see throughout this movie, from the band posters on the walls to all the band t-shirts, the studded belts, the black hair, lip piercings. I love all of that. It was so nice. My eyes were just so happy to see it. So there's really not much about this film that I didn't like, apart from the extremely low-rise jeans that everyone seems to be wearing and some other questionable naughty fashion choices. The only thing in this film that I feel didn't really age well was the choice of language. There are just some really unpleasant homophobic slurs in this film, and some also very dated, questionable language that's sometimes used. It just kind of disappoints me because it brings this film down a notch for me, and when you hear those words being used, it just makes me cringe. And yeah, I don't feel like it was necessary. I know that 2009 is kind of a different time and things have progressed a whole lot since then, but I mean, was it necessary in 2009? I don't think so. So that's kind of the only bad things I have to say about this movie. And another thing that I did like, which usually is where horror films fall flat for me, was the ending of this film. I really liked how it ended. I liked that Needy ends up absorbing some of Jennifer's powers in their last kind of fight, and she ends up escaping from prison and going off to murder the rock band that killed her best friend. So yeah, I thought it was really good. I was pleased with this ending. So overall, I love this movie. It's definitely one of my favourites. I love the dark comedy themes to it, I love the horror aspects of it, and of course I love all of the really important and complex themes that it deals with. Obviously it's a shame that this film flopped so hard when it was released, thanks to all of the marketing errors the studio made. However, I am really glad that it's getting the recognition that it deserves now, and it has a huge cult following, so yeah. So I'm going to score this film a 9 out of 10. I would have scored higher had it not been for the homophobic slurs and the other language, but... So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I'm also going to leave the link to my other social medias in the description box in case you want to follow me in other places. And I'm going to be putting out another video by the end of this week. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!